Welcome everybody to our first ever episode of Everybody versus Life. My name is Blanc.
And my name is Eric. And we have a very special guest here today. His name is, do we go by just Ani, or you want to go by your full name?
We'll just go Ani.
Ani?
Why not?
Ani Fernandez. And he is a former U.S. Marine.
But listen, there's bro vets out there, right? A bro vet would be like, no, once a Marine, always a Marine. You're always a Marine.
Okay.
I'll throw that one in there for you bro vets, but anyway.
Yeah. Okay, I shouldn't say that then.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
Oh, first things first. When did you get out of the military?
June 18th of 2013.
Wow.
Okay, and how are you doing now since you gotten out?
Well, that's like a roller coaster of life right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I've talked a lot about this in therapy. Lots and lots of therapy. I'm lost. Like right now, at this point in time in my life, I feel exactly how I did when I came back. And I was entirely lost, helpless, and like you don't know what the future holds. And it's so messed up to me because I feel like I went backwards like 13 years at this point. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think, I got back. I was in a very like self-sabotage-y like pattern back then. And obviously, going through the VA, doing therapy and all that, they teach you coping mechanisms, right? Because you're never going to be healed, right? You get PTSD, you're always going to suffer from a traumatic event, right? But it's a matter of like what you do to cope with that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So basically, these programs give you these tools where I've been using these tools over the last however many years to cope with that. Like I still have my days where I feel like depressed, I guess you want to say. I feel down. But overall, I mean, you know me pretty well, so it's like I joke a lot, right? And I think joking for me is like my mechanism that
for sure
kind of keeps me, on the path.
Mm-hmm. Keeps you sane. Thing, right. Even
though it comes with a lot of dad jokes, but it also comes with a lot of like over the top comments that. If I was at work, HR would be like, no, didn't hear that. They'd walk away, one of those type of things. I mean, overall, I'd say I'm doing pretty well, but this point in time in my life right now, I'm at a pretty low point right now, to be honest. So
I feel on that one. Different path, probably not as hard as yours.
No, but you and I have a very similar understanding of what we're both currently going through in certain situations, but. Just kind of it fuels that like inner like emptiness and like loneliness. And I don't mean that like all weird. I'm just saying like, when you separate from the military, you're so used to like being around people that understand you, that literally are like your brothers, brothers in arms, whatever you want to call it. But you all experience something and you come back with that same understanding. Once you guys get out and separate and go back to your respective homes and whatever states, and there's not many people that can relate to you, you feel alone. You feel like you're the only one going through it. It's like, imagine a breakup. We all know everybody's been through a breakup, but you in that moment feel like it's just you. Like you are the only person going through it. Nobody, and people can tell you up and down all day, it's going to get better. You're like, no, it's not. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
It's a good metaphor, actually.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, it's just the best way I can explain it to people, because most people don't get it until I throw in that breakup metaphor. It's like that's something that everybody's been through at some point in time in their life, and you feel like you're helpless. You feel like in the moment, like your world's over almost is how you feel. So I'd say that's kind of what you feel when you come back, and you feel like you get back to an area where not everybody understands you. People don't understand the turmoil. So of course what happens is everybody thinks it's like a cold. Well, it'll get better. Get over it. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't work that way. But yeah, so.
Damn. Well, if you want to get more into your break, we could do that a little bit later. We could do that a little later into the show. But I think one thing that I'm interested in is, what kind of drew you into being interested in joining the military at first?
Oh yeah, that good marketing.
Oh yeah, like on the
real?
radio, on TV.
No, that's the thing is I remember as a kid, you'd go to the movie theater, right? It was always on TV too, but for some reason, movie theaters at the time would show these like commercials, and anybody that was born in this time frame, and you were a young kid, past 5 years old in like the mid '90s, will always remember this Marine commercial where this Marine's crossing this like volcanic like pit, lava's flying everywhere, but he's on this wooden bridge. Next thing you know, this like dragon comes up, and then he pulls out a sword. I don't know, something like that. Next thing you know, like if I remember correctly, I think like the fire or something hit him, and then all of a sudden he comes out forged like this big badass Marine.
Looking like Rambo coming out.
Yeah, just looking all badass in the uniform and everything, the dress blues and all that. You know what I mean? It's always this like cinematic thing, and I think it really draws you in. But there was that, and then I've always like kind of been hesitant with it because I played football in high school.
Okay.
But as much as I could keep up with it, for some reason I found it very hard. Like during practices, like playing a game was different, but for some reason practices felt brutal to me, and that's where I started questioning myself. I'm like, there's no way if I'm thinking this is brutal, I can handle Marine Corps boot camp.
Are you talking about like the physicality?
The physicality of it, right?
Okay.
So, because I was a way smaller kid in high school. I mean, I'm probably still the same height, but like I was like $130, $140. Like I was like nothing.
Okay.
So you're like this guy's
I'm
size?
252 right now.
Okay,
You know what I'm
okay.
saying?
So you're like his size then.
Him, if you add on like 20 more dumbbells. But,
Okay.
So I started questioning myself on it, and the only reason it pushed me to do something is because I remember. So if you go on the website, on the Marine Corps website, you can go on there, and then it'll have little like drawstring bags and keychains. Oh, we'll send you information, you get a free whatever. But really, what they're doing is they're getting names of people that are interested, and they send those names to your local recruiting office.
Oh.
So they could call you, right? And I'm like, well, damn, this is a cool backpack. I bought I got the backpack for free just because I wanted information. And I remember my dad saw the thing come in, and he like called me out on it because I ended up quitting football my senior year. So he kind of called me out that like, you're just gonna quit anyway. Why would you do that?
Oh, really? Dang.
And out of like being petty, I was like, fine, I'll go join tomorrow. See how you like it. That's what happened. But what helped me, I guess, really stay on that path to follow through with it was that we had this gunnery sergeant, which it's a rank in the military. But when you hit that rank, you're kind of like in that like weird little transition point where like they call you like daddy of the Marine Corps. Like your gunny is the person you go to for everything. They're the ones that kind of look out for you because they're at a level where they're kind of like getting into that higher. I guess like you look at like the corporate world, right?
Yeah.
You got like a supervisor or a director.
Okay.
A director is still dealing with the people on the floor, still dealing with the people that are putting in the work, but they're in that weird point where they're also dealing with all the people that are on the behind the desk and in the office chairs. So that's what the gunny is basically. So they get both views of it, but they also came from that bottom aspect, so they understand, and now they're transitioning to pretty much be above now.
Right.
But this guy was like your top notch like movie boy poster Marine,
Like Top Gun type thing.
Like this dude was that's the Air Force, they're a little Navy, right? He was Navy in that.
I think he was Navy.
Yeah, so a little weak, but it is what it is.
Weak.
So let's imagine. So we're talking about this dude's like 6'2", 6'3".
Okay.
Dude's just chiseled, the perfect like chin. Like you just think that.
Looking like Guile from Street Fighter.
Yeah, literally, just looking like a badass.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
This dude's got like 2 Purple Hearts from 2 different deployments. Like experienced some badass shit. He was in Fallujah, like the big battle of Fallujah in Iraq. So he just comes out. He's just a squared away dude, and he just like I remember he sits down talking to my recruiter, and he's like, you know what you look good in? Some dress blues, and then he knew how to sell this shit.
Dang.
And in your mind, you're just thinking like, yeah, like I'm gonna look like a fucking badass, like fuck yeah, And that, like I said, it's good marketing. Mm-hmm. Good marketing.
This is you standing at 130 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah.
Damn.
Literally, Eric will have to look through it later, but I got a picture of my Instagram where like my arms look like they're that big.
Oh yeah.
So pretty much like his legs, but in an
All
arm.
right, come on, brother.
Joking. But so that's pretty much what pushed me. Well, it was the commercial and it was the initiative thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm like 6, 7 years old watching this, and I'm just like, okay, this is badass, you know. Never seen a dragon once I was actually in. Disappointing, but you know, either way, that like to see that though, that was cool, you know, to kind of like be a part of this and know that. On top of that, it was also this whole aspect of like my family didn't really have many that were in the military, so I think like myself and a lot of my cousins afterwards were like the first generation of that in our family.
So going back to your dad, was he supportive of it? Like,
my dad's back and forth with this stuff. Like even now in life, right? So he's the same way now that he was then. And basically, his whole thing was, all right, well, you did it, so now stick with it. Well, it's like, well, I don't have a choice. I gotta stick with it. I have to stick with it. But yeah, I mean, you know, he was telling me he's all proud of me, this, that, and the other. But then when it came down to like coming back from Afghanistan, then it was kind of like, you should have gone to school, or you wouldn't be this fucked up.
So is you're Hispanic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is your dad a typical?
why'd you assume that? No, I'm kidding.
Because I'm panicking, bro, and and I go by he and his.
Damn.
Hispanic, what's up?
So I'm assuming your dad is a Hispanic.
You're assuming my race?
No. Chill.
kidding.
Like, you know,
joking, I don't
like
care.
you know, me and Eric coming from an Asian background, like the typical standard immigrant.
Standard? No, I'm just kidding.
You know what I'm saying? Like the typical like immigrant dad type thing.
Yeah.
Like doesn't show a lot of affection.
Yeah, so it's perfect you say that because, go ahead, what?
No. I was going off of that. That's a good point that you brought up. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, and you guys are trying to clown me for it, man. Relax.
I'm just clowning his legs, that's why he always hides them. But,
come on, bro.
Every episode he's crossing.
I know, that's why I noticed it. I'm like, damn, bro, no gains. But,
Damn.
I haven't made fun of you in like a year. You gotta do this.
You're on
That's
that.
true.
You're on that PP routine, push pull routine, skip legs,
Okay, come on. I just did legs today, literally.
Yeah, he had to run all the way
walking
here.
up the stairs on cold, bro.
You
Alright,
do you
okay,
go to the gym?
Enough of this.
Do you go to the gym?
I go to school and I work full time.
I did that too.
He's got the
Did you-
Carhartt hat, bro. You know he works.
The car that you have,
No, your Carhartt.
that piece of junk outside.
Your Carhartt, bro.
Oh, my car hard. It's in my car, my '98 Honda Civic outside.
I'm not
Okay,
even- I'm not
okay.
even surprised.
Okay. No, he drives an Acura TL. That's
Still not surprising.
I had a TL, so I love the TL. But yeah, that's funny you saying that because growing up, my neighbors were Hmong,
Oh yeah,
and
that's cool.
Okay.
I would go over there all the time, and a lot of the food is actually kind of similar in the way they prepped it. I think some stuff, but overall, I'd go over there and I would feel like I was around my dad, even though it wasn't my dad. I'd get that same vibe.
Okay.
But yeah, my dad's like a strict type of dude, but I still wouldn't say he's like full blown traditional because my dad did grow up here. Like he grew up
Okay.
in Los Angeles. Like he grew up around like the bad parts of everything. So
Okay.
he had a whole long life of living in America from like a young ass age. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And but like my dad is that type of guy that kind of feels like he had to work from such an early age that my grandpa pulled him out in his freshman year to work.
Oh damn.
And
Okay.
that's all that it was for him. So my dad would see my brother and I having fun, and we were wrong. If you have time to have fun, you have time to get a second job.
Right.
That's how my dad was. So when it came to like sticking to what you were supposed to do, my dad was very old school, and that like you finish it whether you like it or not, you just deal with it. That's the way it is. And we all know these days it ain't like that. You're not happy with your job, you're gonna go find something else.
Right.
Where him growing up, it's like you got to be thankful you have a job. What they give you, therefore, they provide this for you, so you owe the company your time. It's like I don't live like that, you know. So me and my dad would butt heads like that all the time, like, you know. And but yeah, a lot of it was that affectionate stuff. Like there's none of that. I don't even know the last time I hugged my dad. I don't even remember the last time I hugged my dad. But yeah, he was very like supportive. Like the whole being proud of me thing was weird to hear from him. It was awkward. Very awkward.
Because you
don't hear that.
Yeah, you don't
Right.
expect it. You know.
You know, but in your eyes, you kind of like, okay, he looks at me like a man, you know? So it was kind of cool. But then it's like,
I'm daddy now.
yeah, but like it's kind of like dealing with certain people sometimes, right? It's like you do something and later on they throw it back in your face, and that's basically how my dad was with me. It's like, you know, when I came back and he started seeing there was issues, and I tried to talk to them about it. I could talk to my dad and my mom about stuff to an extent, but what they would do is I could give you a whole story on why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, and somewhere somehow my dad pulls all the negative sounding stuff from it, creates his own sentences and stuff that was never actually said, and it's your fault. You should have gone to school and you wouldn't be in this situation.
That sounds like my dad too.
Wait, is he still around?
Yeah.
I thought he was gone. Then he moved.
No, he came back.
Oh,
Oh,
Is
so
your dad
disappointed.
still around?
yeah.
Okay.
Like,
Oh,
He actually came back with the milk.
So he actually came back with them. And
so,
the cigs.
so he's living in Wisconsin.
Yeah, him and my mom live in Menasha. So
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, it's an interesting experience with him because I'm 34 years old and he still tries to talk to me like I'm a child, and it's the most irritating thing in the world. Like, it's my life, you lived yours.
Right.
I appreciate the sacrifices you made, but the reason you tell me growing up all the time that you made them so I could live a better life.
Right.
I'm living that better life, and I almost get like it's a sense of jealousy, like almost kind of like bitterness. Like, I understand you didn't get to have a childhood, but I was able to have a childhood, so we're not going to view few things the same
I feel
way.
like I can see where the bitterness is coming from because, you know, you kind of making your own living doing kind of the opposite of what he wanted you to do type thing. You know, maybe not so much the opposite, but not fully the full extent of what he wanted you to do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, my dad's one of those guys that's like, you just need to find a job that pays you well and can provide for your future family.
does your dad tell you that too or no?
Dude, all the time. That's crazy. It's crazy how like
Yeah, it's not about happiness. It's not about work-life balance. Like, fuck all. Like, that shit goes out the window for them. It's like, nope. As long as you're paying the bills, that's all that should matter to you.
Right.
It's like, yeah, but I'm trying to be here for my kid. Like, you weren't around when I was, like, you were there, but you weren't there.
I can relate to that.
So
Straight up.
you're upset
Same.
that you're
Me too.
so it's like you're upset with me that we don't have a relationship, but we don't have a relationship because you chose to work all the time. And even now, he still does that. My mom's getting to the point now where now she's voicing things, you know, because you know, he doesn't want to do anything, and he works. And if he can't sleep,
I feel like that might be because that's all he knows.
yeah,
You know
that
what I mean?
probably is, and I'm sure
I
it
think
is.
that-
But he got an award from his job. They made up an award for him because aside from like the downtime that they had, because when they do maintenance and stuff, they get 2 weeks off regardless. Like, it's not your choice. You have to be off. It's paid, whatever. But they had to make up an award for him because I think it was like 2.5 years or 3 years or something like that where he didn't miss a day. He didn't take PTO.
Oh, really?
He showed up sick regardless, back before everybody was scared of a sneeze. And it basically, like, unless it was like the legitimate scheduled time off the company made you do, he didn't take a day off. And I don't know how he did it because it's an iron mail company. So it's like, I worked there for a summer, and I'd go in there clean as hell, and sometimes they'd put me in something that I wasn't even doing any like manual labor, and I still came out looking like I walked out of a mine. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm like, I don't know how the hell you go in there, can't breathe sometimes, and yet you're breathing in all this nasty stuff, and you're okay with it. Like, you're okay with. But for him, it's like, well, that's all the money's made. It's just like, damn. All right.
Yeah, I feel like he might just feel the most productive doing that.
Probably.
You know?
Yeah.
He might be one of those dads who, if they're just sitting around, they feel like they're not being productive. And
Yeah.
they're wasting time. Like something can always be done. Something can always be fixed.
That's how
type
he
thing.
is.
Yeah.
If he owned a company, it'd be one of those like, oh, you have time to blink, you have time to sweep. It's
Right.
like, what?
Okay, so you and him, if you were to tomorrow go to his house and you guys were to sit down and have lunch together, what would you guys talk about? Or would it be
Nothing.
awkward?
Nothing.
You would just drop off the lunch and take off, huh?
I would just say I already ate.
Dang.
We can't talk. I've
you
tried.
you would drop off his burger and then you go eat your burger in the car, huh?
Yeah, but except I would get a phone call that maybe instead of buying burgers that are made right, you should go get a job and go do it yourself. And it's like, what the hell? My burger was good. You know what I'm saying? It just we can't talk. I've tried over the years. I even tried.
Well, it could be like that one clip that we watched on YouTube where, the dude had a really tough dad too, and like treated him like shit. But when the son went to go apologize, you remember that video?
Yeah, that one hit me.
Yeah, when the son apologized and like they both just started crying, and
Really?
maybe that's what you need to do, man.
No.
No.
I say no. I say no because I've apologized for my own wrongdoings. When I went through the therapy thing, the thing that I learned the most was that maybe sometimes relationships are not the way you want them to be because maybe you're not letting go of something. Like you could think that everybody's against you. In reality, you could be the problem. You know what I'm saying? You're not always the victim. Like we aren't all always the victim. Sometimes we are the problem, and that's something that they opened my eyes to. So I went back and I legitimately tried to set times up with people to apologize for my own wrongdoings, and one of them was my dad. And I thanked him for raising us the way he did. I said, I understand you were hard on us, but I understood why. I'm sorry for the times that I gave you a hard time for it. And that turned into, because like I'm right, you're wrong thing on his end. And basically me just being apologetic, owning my wrongdoing of things was a full justification of why he had to be the way he was.
That's crazy.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I tried, like, instead it shut me down. And I don't shut down. So, like, I used to always think that was an excuse for people just to deflect talking about something or owning up to something. But then that's the moment where I realized, like, okay, and I see why people shut down. Like, this makes sense. Because I didn't know what to do after that. So now I can't even talk to him. Like, and if we do, it's because my mom's around. Right. And it's not that I don't like my dad or don't love him. But I know I can't have a conversation with you because it feels almost like forced. It feels fake. You know what I'm saying?
Bro, that's exactly how I used to be. Exactly how you explained it with, like, I can't have a conversation with dad unless my mom's around. That's crazy. I think it comes a lot with just minority dads and how they grew up in, like, the 80s, 90s, or whatever it is. And just the times that they grew up on. And they didn't know any better than to just work. And that's just kind of how, like, they can cope with their problems. Yeah. I'm sad. I'm going to go to work to make more money. You know, that kind of thing,
Even being Hispanic, I know for a fact in my family, nobody says it, but I feel it. And it's not just me, like, going off of, and it's probably just me. It's like, no, I know how it is because a lot of my family, a lot of, like, my cousins and people like that are married by the time they're, like, 18. They're married already. They're popping out their first kid at 19, 20. Like, that's the norm in the Hispanic culture is you're young. Like, people don't realize it here, but in Mexico, you're a woman at 16. By 20, you probably have like 6 kids. You know what I'm saying? So myself being 34 years old, I already know, and I can feel it the minute I go anywhere because I get asked, "Oh, when are you gonna get married? When are you gonna do this?" And it's like I'm not in a rush. I've had relationships where you think, you know what I mean, that you were at that level, and it fails out or some way, shape, or form. So it's like I got lucky that my family kind of at least my mom and dad kind of backed off on that, but there definitely was. That's another like cultural thing with them. It's like my dad thinks I'm wrong that I'm at this age and I don't own my own house right now. It's like. I don't own my own house right now because I don't know that I want to stay here. Right. Well, you need to figure out. I'm like, I need to figure out my life. Like, I thought I had a career that I loved, did it for years, and then I realized it's not for me. Why do I want to feel stuck? Buying a home locks you in. So I rent. He's like, you're just wasting money. I'm like, but I'm working for it. It's my money, and I need it now. I just plugged.
That's such like. I feel like that's such a minority thing. Like just
me being 28, single with no kids. Man, I be looked at like I'm 50 years old and I ain't doing shit with my life.
You're just like sitting here smelling your money. Yeah, it sucks. It
sucks. Right. Well, maybe that's right.
But it's just like, after you saying that, it just like what Eric said, it's a minority thing. It sounds like,
Right.
If I'm not married by 21, have a good career, have a wife, and have 2 kids in a house, then I'm a failure.
Yeah, you were
You
one
know?
by 16. That's such a norm thing,
Right.
with like the
can't-
Asian community
And I
too.
can't get with that. You know what I mean? Because like, I don't know. I think for us too, times have changed in dating and all that crap. So I think for us too, it's not the same where like back then people had the respect of like, oh well, you are my husband or wife. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? And which is funny to me because it's like it comes into like I always hear this shit. And I see it on Facebook. That's why I deleted Facebook 2 months ago because I see these fucking people.
Which is why I don't see you on my friends list anymore.
Yeah, everybody thinks I blocked them. It's like, damn, you care now? You think I died? Where's my flowers at? But anyway, so I see these people all the time post, I was born the wrong generation. I should have been born back in the 50s. I'm like, are you dumb? Like, do you know why you think it was better back then? Because it wasn't okay to air out your laundry like people do now, where we all know what somebody's going through and what's happening in their lives because either Facebook, Snapchat, they're blasting somebody out there, right? It's like you want to go back to a time where you were a female, didn't have anything, like you were like, oh, no, go do the dishes, go do this.
Right.
So it's like everybody's like, oh my God, look how it used to be. I'm like, you're watching a show, you're watching a poster, you're looking at something that like gives off this persona, but it's like these days it's common for what, right? It's common to live with a split family. Like it's common, divorce is a thing. Like it's common to even not even be married these days for us. We're back that's what it was. That was the American dream, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you see these people preaching this stuff, and it's like they were going through the same problems. That's why like you look at the boomers have the highest STD rates because now they're all banging everything they can. Because back then they couldn't do it,
Right? Because they were just ignoring every fucking thing in the world.
Yeah, back then it was okay to step on people.
Right, like that one thing where you see in those fucking old movies where they dance with that one girl at their prom and they're married for life, right? And they just ignore every single fucking problem that they have. We're married, this is the one, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
crazy.
It just doesn't work that way.
I don't even know how they overlook that, honestly.
I don't know. I don't get it either. And on top of that, I couldn't wear a suit just to go walk at a park like they used to back in those days. Like, okay, you're a rebel because you wore jeans and a white T-shirt. What scum are you? It's like the fuck.
Yeah, you greaser.
Is it because I'm Mexican?
See, but back in the day, that was the norm, man.
That was the norm, and this is our norm. You know
Yeah, see, now everybody's out here wearing Astro boots and.
Oh God. I
You
just
seen those?
posted about that.
Astro boots? Wait, I have not seen that. What is that about?
I posted that today on my Instagram, and I said, we are a dumb species.
Yeah, so,
Check this out, bro. Check this out. Literally, on my story. Look. Hold on, let me actually go to the post.
Bro, he's so happy.
Bro, low key, those are kind of fire, though.
Dude, this is real, man.
Those are the cool things now, man.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Is that actually a thing?
This is a thing. They're going for like $2,000, aren't they?
Something
like that.
Like crazy expensive.
It's kind of dope, actually.
Boots,
I would never wear them, but yeah,
You're looking like Sonic the Hedgehog.
I bet you if you give the phone to people from the 50s and be like, hey, look what they're wearing in 2020.
Their first question would be like, why is this TV so tiny?
Right.
Holy shit. Dang, I can't believe that's a thing. Holy shit.
It's only going to get worse from here.
That's only gonna get
we
for
are
real.
fucked.
You ever think that like 100 years from now, people are going to look back at what we wear and they're like, these guys are dumb.
This opens up so many topics in my head because I was thinking about it the other day. Mostly because I got it off a meme, right?
Yeah.
And it said, right now, what's the biggest thing besides a race thing, what's the biggest thing that this world's going through right now, or at least America, right? The whole gender thing, like what you believe you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I'm trying to get into that topic, but they brought it up. They said, okay, imagine hundreds of years from now, let's just say the human race got wiped out. And let's just say there is something more advanced out there that comes to Earth and finds our remains the same way we found the dinosaurs. They're going to look at it, and if they understand what a male and a female is, at the end of the day, they're going to be like, oh, this is a male skeleton. You know what I'm saying? And it comes back to that. Like, people are going to look back and look at how we did things and be like, what the fuck? Like, I see people making TikToks of like, with the old person filter, and they're like, our oldies will be this, and it's like the ladies like play that song from when I was 20, all old and shit, and they're like, oh, okay, grandma. There's some hoes in this house. There's some hoes. You know what I mean? and then like WAP was coming on. Like, that's our oldies, man. And you think about it, like all that music we have now will be our oldies. Isn't that messed up? Man. Isn't that messed up?
That really is messed up.
It was just like the other day, right? I was talking to my nephew, and he goes, oh yeah, 10 years ago. Me thinking in my head 10 years ago is like 2004, 2005.
Akon.
Right? Bro, 10 years ago is 2013.
Yeah.
Dang, that just blew my mind. Holy shit.
Right? You thought of like 2004, 2005 type thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Holy shit.
Back when like 2000, 2001, I remember watching movies from when I was born, 89, which is 10, 11, 12 years. Right? Before me. And I would watch that stuff and be like, damn, that shit looks ancient. Like, those graphics sucked. You know what I mean? It was weird. But when you think back, just like that, 10, 12 years ago was like 2010, 2009. And you think back, and it's like, I watch movies from there, and I'm like, this is still pretty modern. Like, I still feel like I'm watching something that was made recently.
Right.
But it's like, to somebody that's young right now, like, they're 7, 8 years old, they're like, why does that look weird?
Right.
Like, shut up, Terry.
Terry.
Oh.
That fucking name, Terry.
I don't know. It's weird, man. It's time. It's time.
So did you guys want to get back on the military topic, or just?
Yeah, it don't matter to me.
I don't know how.
Yeah,
we,
okay.
I
got some military questions for you. Okay. So when you joined the Marine, like, what rank were you striving for? Or was that not in your head?
That was not in my head at all.
Yeah. Okay.
I just wanted. I'm not gonna give you the cliche. I just want to serve my country. Like, I just want to be a fucking badass. Like, that. Yeah. I'm sorry, but being a high school kid, your mentality at those times are being tough and being this. Like, you want to stand the fuck out. That's just how it is, you know? Yeah. You know, and that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to do something where I was a badass. Like, in my head, it was like the video games. You were doing some crazy shit. You watch the movies. You want to be this fucking hero. Like, my whole thing was just, like, do some badass shit. You know?
So, going off that, where were you stationed and where were you deployed?
So initially when I went in, I did do the reserves first because my whole plan was go to school, become an officer, you know, like a lieutenant and all that crap because I wanted to fly. And you have to be, pilots are all officers. Like, you have to have a college degree.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it doesn't matter in what, but you have to have a college degree. Like, that's what gets you into those field of things.
Okay.
And that was my whole plan. Well, about a year and a half in, I was like, fuck this. Like, reserve life sucks ass. Like, it's just, the only people that I see out here really preaching that shit and loving it is like the National Guard. They just love being that. Like, it's, but they do get to do more, I think, than we do. Like, when I was doing it, it was like this, like, you'd show up on a weekend up in, because they have one in Green Bay. They used to have one in Milwaukee, but now they transitioned that all to Madison, I think, and it's an infantry unit, you know. And when I first went into it, it was in the whole like cabin engineer field, and doing all that. You know, it's like doing with that. It's so many within that. You can be like a fueler, you can be like a rock clearance specialist, all these different things, right? And that my goal was that. So then when I realized like I don't want to do this, I started working at the Appleton office, awaiting orders because I was trying to go active duty. Like, that was my whole thing. I was like, I want to just, you know, screw this. I don't want to be home and whatever else. And then really close to that, when everything was, you know, going through and whatever, my packet or everything else, I was like, oh, we're going to go on a deployment. I got a phone call from my unit, like, do you want to go? And I was like, fuck yeah, I'll go. Like, let's go. It was supposed to be to Iraq, but that was around 2008, so the elections are coming up, you know, and that's when Obama and Bush and whatever else. And so to make everything look good about the whole, we're bringing the troops home, they canceled the deployment. So I'm still sitting there doing this recruiter assistance thing, you know, on active duty now, working at the recruiting office as an assistant per se, like not an actual recruiter. I was just like their bitch boy. And, you know, and all of a sudden, like, oh, we're going to go to Afghanistan. But we're like this more of an advanced unit. We're going to basically be split up and do all these different things. You're not even going to do your MOS type of a thing. You know what I'm saying? Luckily enough, though, I still got my machine gunner position that I was wanting, and I still went through, and that's what I was able to do in Afghanistan. But we were doing it more so with a unit that's providing aid to several different, or assistance to several different infantry units, but also non-infantry units. So we were like their gun trucks for non-infantry units where they were going on convoys or patrols and delivering like stuff like mail and stuff like that, logistics, equipment, food, whatever it was. But we were their heavy guns. We were the people that if shit hit the fan, we're going to be sitting there making sure this convoy was good or advancing up ahead, whatever else, whether it was a trucks, foot, whatever. And then, luckily I did get to do some stuff, like I will always hold 3rd Battalion 1st Marines near and dear to my heart because that's who, I ended up getting put with. And, I'm not saying I was with the unit, but that's who I got put with for this deployment. And, we did a push in the southern Afghanistan called Operation Roadhouse 2, and we did some shit. And, that was my whole role in that. So it's like, once we heard all that, they're based out of Camp Pendleton. It was in California. So before we went over there, my workups and everything were out of Camp Pendleton. So Marine Corps-wise and being stationed, like Camp Pendleton was one of the only places that I was able to really, I guess, call my home away from home. On top of also being from that area, it was just nice being back in there because I have a lot of family there on my dad's side. So that, and then, as far as station-wise, I guess I would say here in Wisconsin, but also Camp Pendleton, California, which is, north of San Diego. So
Yeah.
it's cool. But I've also been to many other parts of the world and,
That's
the
dope.
country and for training, whatever else, in Hawthorne, Nevada, Quantico, Virginia, other places in Virginia, Fort Lee, and all these places. So I don't know. It's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, like, when you were deployed to Afghanistan, how did you feel? Like, what were the emotions? Like, were you scared? Was that part of it? I mean, I don't want to say... Yeah.
Say what you want to say. That's the beauty of this thing, right? You're learning.
Is it anything like what you see in the movies?
That's a good point.
It is. Most of these movies, like if you watch The Hurt Locker, for example, if you watch that, it's... What's his name? Jeremy? The guy that plays Hawkeye. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I don't know. I can't think of it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm pretty sure he's the one that's in it. But they have this scene where they first get to the country, and you see them walking out, and the sun's blazing, and you can just like feel it. They're just like feeling this heat, right? And people are just everything, just a lot of moving parts everywhere. That's what that felt like. Except the heat was so intense, and you're not used to that. Like we flew out of California, landed in New Hampshire to Germany to this place called I keep thinking of Borat, the whole because
Kazakhstan.
but it's called Kyrgyzstan, or the place that we went to.
Okay.
It's right next to the Siberian mountains, so it's fucking freezing. And then you're on this military plane that's freezing, and then we get to Afghanistan. You obviously on the plane, you're feeling it's warm, right? You're somewhere warm, but you walk out in that, and your breath just you're like. It's like your lungs are just like instantly like
you're going from like
imagine
0
a sauna.
degrees to like a
Imagine
100
walking into a sauna and you're kind of like, you know what I mean? It kind of like takes your breath away. That's how it was. And same thing, just a lot of moving parts. The sun's blazing, and I watch these movies where they show like, it'll say Afghanistan or Iraq, and they have those scenes where somebody's coming out of an airplane, and that I will tell you that brings back so many memories because the way they portray it in those movies, there's just something about that just reminds you like that's how it felt arriving there.
Damn.
There's nothingness.
That's crazy.
But at the same time, there's a lot. It's so crazy to me. But yeah, as far as getting back to your whole, was there fear? There was a shit ton of fear because it's the unexpected, right? Mm-hmm. It's the full on unexpected. I'm a person that really believes in like signs and like gut feeling. Like I trust my gut now because I will confidently say I've never been wrong on a gut feeling. But I just remember I was eating Chinese food. It was the last thing I ate in America. And for some reason, I don't know what the hell it was, but something told me to hold on to that cookie. Like something was just kind of like, don't eat it right now, I put it in my cargo pocket, before I got on the airplane. I had to go to the bathroom really bad because I had Chinese the night before, which was that. I ended up in the back of the line. which was actually ended up being cool as hell because instead of ending up in it was those like double decker planes, the 2 like floor planes, whatever, like commercial flight, because you fly commercial until you get to Kyrgyzstan, whatever, you know. So I ended back in the line. Well, I realized they were actually filling up back to front. So I actually ended up in one of those cool seats where like you have the wall and you can recline. And
Really?
Like first class type stuff, you know what I mean? I remember I was sitting there and I was laying down and I was like, man, like what, like, is this a sign? Like enjoy this while it lasts, you know? And I got a little hungry. I'm like, oh, my fortune cookie. So I'll pop it open and it says, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, which I ended up getting tattooed right here. But I held on to that, and it reminded me of those movies. Like you see all these war movies, they always take out their helmet, their Kevlar, and inside they have like messages or pictures. Yeah. And I popped that fucker in mine. And let me tell you, that deployment was exactly that. It was that meaning to me meant something way more after that. But the fear is there until I think you experience like something that's traumatic to you. Because I remember my traumatic incident that I live with, and which is weird because the person that I had the guilt for in that situation, I haven't talked to in a hot minute. And for some reason, I'm sitting here and he comments on something on my Instagram as I'm waiting for you. Dang. And it instantly just reminded me of that whole situation of what happened to him and how I was there and I felt like I let him down, you know. And when that happened, I had like your movie style psycho moment where like you see the guys in these movies lose their shit and they just start going out there shooting or whatever. They just don't give a fuck, right? I had something similar to that with this blast that happened, and which is on YouTube. Not my choice. Somebody else had posted it that I told not to post it, and they did. He's from Oshkosh. But anyway,
names,
it's got a shit ton of views, right?
We need names.
But yeah, right. But that video of that incident is out there now, you know? And so to remember all that, I remember when it happened, I was so... We were medevacing this Marine out because he, at this point, had been in 3 blasts within 6 hours that whole day. And people might be like, how are you like that? It's like, well, we were pretty much helping an Army unit get back to this main road. So what you would consider, like, let's say, like the Breezewood exit in Neenah to the Jackson exit.
Okay, yep.
That took us 3 days to get that distance.
Holy shit.
With 60 vehicles, because you got to imagine each vehicle is about 20-some yards apart, 30 yards, you know what I'm saying? So, but we kept hitting blast and blast. We estimated a total of like 36 IEDs that went off in that time frame. This particular IED went off. We went off the path into the middle of the desert because we were hitting so many. Like it's because they know our route. We somehow ended up hitting shit in the middle of nowhere where we never actually would have probably ever stepped foot, and we hit some. And this particular one, it was so bad that we were medevacing this Marine, and I remember we ran out of these things called mine rollers, and we ran out of the big trucks. So at this point, we're sitting there. We have this thing called an MRAP, which you probably see them driving around with, you know, Oshkosh truck when they drive around. It's this little one that I always think it looks like a hedgehog because it's like this little tiny like snout comes up and then it kind of curves off. It's a very smaller truck, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And this guy, you couldn't fit him across even the back seats. The doors wouldn't close. Damn. So myself and this Marine had to stand on the step rails and hold this door, and so to get him out of the helicopter. Well, we're sitting there, and this, you know, I could see the helicopter where it landed. You have all this like sand getting blown everywhere, the blades, everything else. And I remember I had this fear that I was going to go blind. I'm like, I'm going to be in some blast. Something's just going to happen to me. I'm going to live. I'm blind the rest of my life. I don't know why I felt that, but I stuck my head in there, and I was by where his boot was, basically, you know. And the other Marine's like, what are you doing? I was like, well, we don't have any more mine rollers, so we're kind of going into this blind and get him up to this helicopter. If something happens, I'll live with being an amputee, but I don't want to go blind.
Right.
He goes, you know how much that door weighs? If a blast hit on your side, that door's going to take your head off. And I just stopped, pulled my head back out, and I just kept my eyes closed. Got up to the helicopter, And it was like that feel. It was so surreal because I literally will say it's that movie style moment. Like, if you ever watch Saving Private Ryan, in the beginning of the movie, Tom Hanks gets really close to a blast. He's on the beach, and he's like looking around, and he's watching everything's like in slow mo. Yeah. Everything's dim. Like, you can't hear. He's not hearing much. He puts on his helmet. He sees somebody get blown up, and he's just like looking around. That's what I felt in that moment. I can remember it to this day. Like, I could feel it, like the sand hitting your face, the blades go on the propeller with the helicopter. We get him up there, put him in, and the door gunner goes, "You get in, keep him calm." And I froze, and I lied. And I said, "Oh, I'm in that truck right there, and that truck only has 2 people in it. You need at least 2 people minimum per truck."
Yeah.
I'm the vehicle commander, which I wasn't. I was a machine gunner in a different truck, and like I live that to this day, you know, like because I feel like I failed as a Marine. Like we live by a motto that a saying that says never leave a Marine behind, and I felt like I failed him, even though he tells me up and down because it took 7 years to find this fool. Oh, yeah. And yeah, long story short, he's like, "Bro, because I feel more bad for you that you had to live through that, thinking that I wasn't okay." But anyway, getting back to this, I remember walking away, and like my head and my heart were telling me, "Turn around, get back in there, get back in there," because they couldn't waste time. They're just, "All right, you get in." They pick somebody else. Right. But my legs kept going opposite way, and I get back to the truck, and they're like, "Hey, Fernandez, like go help clean up, like just kind of pick up some of the scrap, pile it up, and then the wrecker guys will come out here, they'll pick everything up, and get these trucks out of here, bring them back." And I was so mad picking this shit up, and I was so mad at myself. I knew the minute I went numb. I could feel it because I literally stood up, and I looked at like those 3 little mounds and looked fresh, right? Which you're in the middle of a desert. Nothing should have been dug up to look fresh. That's not a thing. I grabbed a stick, a big ass stick, like them walking sticks. Like you think I was out walking in like some big old hills, and I started going up, and I went right into the inside of the first one. And it was so bad that one of my sergeants was like, "Fernandez, what the fuck are you doing?" I was like, "Checking for more IEDs." And it was one of those hesitant moments for them because you knew that they really didn't know. And based off all our training on like, fresh mounds, like, yeah, it's dry out here, but if for some reason that looks like it's wet, that means somebody was digging. That's all underground type of, that color. Yeah. It's fresh, like, and I will say it's like a movie because it's like they're running up and they're stopping at a certain point. Because now they're scared because I keep walking away from them going, nope. So I got labeled as having combat stress 6-7 months in, and I had to go through therapy. And I was so ashamed to tell people that because I felt like I failed so much in that time frame that I had to get pulled away from my own unit to get sent back to some built-up nice base that has a fucking Pizza Hut. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I'm sitting there talking to somebody about my feelings. That was so messed up to me. Like, I'm in a combat zone and I'm talking about my feelings right now to some colonel. It's so screwed up. But after that, bro, when you experience some personal shit like that, everybody gets to a point of being numb, and that fear is gone. You're always thinking of the worst, which is your fear, right? But the fear doesn't come out anymore internally as it does, where you're just like, because the first couple of times we went out on missions, I was so afraid that I was going to get popped in the head with a fucking round. Like that was my worry. That's the only part of me that wasn't protected. Like with the with our turrets. And I remember like it was that feeling when somebody's gonna act like they're gonna throw something, you're like, you know what I mean? Because you're not close enough to fucking grab this shit, but you're far enough that like this is gonna hurt. I can't stop this. That's what I felt like the first couple of months being there. I was always like hesitant. The anxiety of that was just brutal. You know what I'm saying? And then you just get to a point where you're like, fuck it, today's the day. Let's go. It's almost like a game. Let's see how far I can make it today before I get killed. That used to be a thing with us. It's fucked up. Oh, I made it to 2 p.m. Sweet. That's longer than I thought I was going to make it today.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That's insane.
America.
And how long were you in the Marines? No, the Marines. Right?
6 years, but I always say that I really only did 5. obviously with my whole situation, going reserve to, doing the whole trying to be active thing, I did longer, obviously, because whatever, my contract, the way it worked, I went into my inactive time, and it was just one of those things where I will say I did fine because that last year I was going through so many legal things and medical stuff that I was pretty much going through these med boards.
Okay.
So I didn't do shit. I was actually back home during that time because I was actually at a program with the VA that my unit in California had recommended I go through back home where I had support. So
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know much about the military. So when you were in the reserve, is that the Army?
no, it's Marine.
Oh, it's
Every
Marines?
unit. Every unit.
Oh, okay.
Every unit has their own reserve.
Oh, okay.
side of
Okay.
things. Or
Gotcha.
not every unit. Every branch has their
A
own.
branch. Okay. Even National Guard.
National Guard is part of the Army.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The only
Dang. Okay.
yeah.
I did not know that.
So and there's a misconception with the National Guard, because the National Guard, now that it's peacetime, it's actually supposed to go back to the whole, like, now you're just for your state. You're not for in a sense, your country anymore.
Yeah.
National Guard is a per state military, if you want to look at it that way. to
Yeah,
better
that's what I
explain
always
it.
thought of.
Okay.
Yeah,
Huh.
and I know there's people that, if somebody's listening to others and they're like, fuck that, it's not. It's like, you're right. Maybe it's not for you because you lived in an era where you guys were expanded more. But in the old school ways, it's literally like every state has their own military branch, and that's the National Guard. The National Guard was attached to the Army because the Army is our biggest branch. If the Marine Corps or the Navy was, the National Guard would have been attached to those units.
Okay.
Or or the play around branch like the Coast Guard. But just kidding.
Are you though?
I saw a meme that said, which one is not a real branch? And the first 3 pictures were actual tree branches and then the Coast Guard.
Dang.
We're just joking, little coasties. But yeah.
So, like you said, or you don't count that last year due to like medical and all that
I don't
stuff?
count it because I don't feel that I did anything related to anything Marine Corps.
So do you think that was the main reason why you didn't re-enlist, or was the opportunity never presented to you?
Honestly, I know there's people out there that had it worse than I did. I'll never say that I had it bad. I went through my own shit. We went through our own shit. But I'll never say I lived some movie style scenario.
Right.
Like, that's not what it was. If we ever did get like small fire, it was it was pop rounds, and then people would shoot back at like basically nothing at that point, because damn well they went pop 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 and ran away.
Right.
You know what I mean? There were some battles like that that our unit did take, but it was like separate, platoons, separate companies, things like that, because every company's got like your own. For example, like Lima company, my company, but you're spread out, right? Like, it's a battalion level, regiment, whatever goes over there. It's split up all in that area that you're working in. You know what I'm saying? So, I guess for me, it's like I wasn't doing anything at all that was related to my job. I was at all, and so because of that, like, it's not that I didn't want to re-enlist. It's that this doctor basically told me that in her 38 years of doing this, I was one of 3 of the worst cases she's seen as far as my thinking, and how she didn't think it was safe for me to go back in. And it's not that I was some psychopath, but I was so angry that my filter was gone.
Right.
Unlike, ladies and Snapchat filters, mine was gone.
Right.
I'm not talking shit about women. I just think it's funny. But anyway,
So just like your whole mental health wasn't.
I didn't care. That's my thing.
Yeah.
I said what I thought because I don't care what anybody says. We've all thought of some fucked up shit in the past. It's not saying you're going to carry anything out. I'm not saying you're scheming, conspiracy, planning on like taking people out and that stupid shit. But think of when people are mad and they say dumb shit like, "Oh, I'll fucking kill you," because they're mad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But imagine being somewhere, you're so fucking mad, you're just thinking, fuck, if I could just like plow you the fuck out of this fucking like, to think shit like that, And I used to tell her, I'm like, I hate traffic. She goes, why? I'm like, because people are fucking dumb. They're slow. Like, move the fuck over. It's not that hard, right? I'm like, and I told her, if I had a big semi with a giant plow, I would plow through every single one of these cars. Her response was, what if there's kids in there? Well, your fucking mom and dad should have been a fucking idiot. Who says shit like that? Right. You know what I'm saying? But I was in such a angry, like, I felt like the world owed me, is how I felt. Because I felt the struggle. I didn't know why I was feeling that way. At the time, I couldn't recognize it. I just knew something was wrong. And I was angry and bitter. And so to say things like that, they instantly think that you're like Not that I was ever called this, but I have friends that have on their record stuff that they have homicidal tendencies. Not that they ever carry them out, but a lot of these guys that I know that have that are also prior special forces. So it's like they go off of what you say. It's not that they're 100% seeing it, but if you're saying fucked up shit like that, they're going to be like, it's this, it's that, and it goes into your records.
You're going to get labeled a certain way.
You're going to get labeled.
Yeah.
And talking about labeling, PTSD, right? People, I hate telling people because people put on what my therapist calls the fragile gloves. Now you're broken. Now it's, do you need something? It's like, you're going to piss me off by talking to me like a child instead of a grown man.
Right.
And then I'm going to get mad because you're talking like a child, that when I express that, now you're like, it's his PTSD. It's a never-ending cycle, you know? But, yeah, I mean, if it was up to me, I would have stayed in, but I probably seen with most recent events and for example, you know, the vaccine, a lot of people got kicked out because they said, I'm not taking it. Even if I would have loved to have been a lifer, 100%. I would have wanted to do my 20 years and then got out. But my stuff would have ended with that same thing. I probably would have been kicked out like 2 years ago. You know what I mean?
Okay, gotcha.
But if it was up to me, I
Is that still one of the standards for it?
no, they
Not
actually November, I think, or December, I think they took that away.
So did they bring all those people back then?
That's where the controversy is right now, currently going on. People that want back in because they said, I didn't want to get out. You forced me out because I didn't want to take the jab. So now people are pushing to allow these people to come back in as long as they meet the standards still and back pay them from the time you kicked them out.
Because wouldn't they be considered like the dishonorable
discharge kind of thing?
Dishonorable, you'd have to do some crazy level shit.
So what would they be labeled as?
There's like there's honorable, obviously, and there's other than honorable, and there's something under than other, some weird shit like that. There's a bad conduct discharge, and there's like then you got your dishonorable. Dishonorable means like you got court-martialed, which means that you went in front of a court and a judge on a military level because you did some crime.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Can you get something like that still regardless and not do something crazy serious? Yeah, there's been circumstances, you know, violating certain small little things, even hazing, which in a sense it's like you're bullying somebody.
Right.
That could get you court-martialed depending on if somebody ended up getting hurt bad enough. So shit like that, right? So it's like, I think what they were doing, it was you were getting out on an honorable or other than honorable conditions, which is like below that. It's saying that you did a good job, you were a good service member, but there was just something that was just enough that they didn't want you anymore.
Right.
It's like getting fired.
Okay.
It's like getting fired, but your company's still saying we'll give you a letter of recommendation still.
Oh, like kind of like getting laid off.
Yeah. It's kind of like you're a good worker. We'll put in a good word for you, but we don't want you.
Right.
You're just not good enough for us anymore.
Yeah,
that's basically what it is.
Yeah. Now they're trying to get back in.
The cool thing about that type of discharge, though, depending on the reason you got that discharge, after 6 months you can appeal it, and then they'll turn into an honorable. I'd say about 90% of some people that didn't have anything serious shit on there, it reverted to an honorable condition. And that's what a lot of these people that did get kicked out because they said no to the shot, I guarantee you those appeals will go through without questions asked. It's going to be like, yeah, no, you're right. But yeah, that's not a thing anymore. Now you don't have to be vaccinated to join like it used to be. So yeah, there's a whole controversy with that. You got to look into it.
That's interesting. I would have never thought about that.
Yeah, because there's people that didn't want to get out. They just had no choice, you know. So yeah, it's pretty cool though.
So, you know, obviously you and I used to work together. But the viewers don't know.
Oh, it's strip club.
Okay. But you know, Rainey was in the military.
Yeah.
Like, so how do you like? I don't know if it's like when you know someone that served, but you also serve. Is it kind of like a bro thing, where it's like, are you my bro me kind of thing, or is it more like I don't know you? But
yeah, if you run into somebody who was in the Coast Guard, how you acting?
I won't even look at them. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No,
we're joking.
So it's funny because I always put in this metaphor of like, think of gangs, right? We are the biggest gang in the world, right? If you're out in public claiming you're a Marine, we check your ass. Oh, where were you stationed? Oh, was your MOS? We're looking for those little flaws to see if you're fucking lying.
It's that stolen valor.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And so the military is like your biggest gangs, where like your branches are your rivalry, right? But you also have rivalry out there in the hood that's like, okay, well, we're from the same city, so as long as you stay to your areas or this area, or if you come on an area, there's rules. Like you can't be wearing, that's how it works for branches, right? Like there is a camaraderie with that too. But when you get out, I'd say it's the equivalent of like the OGs of like gangs, right? Like they just lived it, right? To a point now they're just like, man, you young kids are dumb as fuck. Like we used to scrap, and there's just a respect for somebody else in a different gang, because now it's like you're an OG too. Like we understand that it shouldn't be this way. And that's the way veterans work when you get out of the military is, oh, you were in? It's this instant like brother, like you're my brother, you're my sister, or whatever, 89 other genders. But fucking throw it in there. I mean, hey, I'm trying to be modern times, bro. Modern times. I gotta let everybody else also, I'm not trying to offend nobody. But yeah, when I met Rainey, so was mostly because of custom mouse, and I like Rainey a lot. Bro.
That's a guy that we used to work with at our last
Brian, but he calls him Rainey. But yeah, so when I met him, the thing about vets is we have a certain way we think, and the way we talk, and the way we joke, and that is usually where we always hit it off. Is you'll say some fucked up shit, and sometimes you'll hear, "You were in the military, weren't you?" It's like, why? It's like, because I used to say I'm stupid. It's like, oh yeah, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, we were in. But we don't give a fuck about what you did. It's not about oh, well, you were a mechanic and I was whatever, special forces or what. It doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? It's just more of like, it's just an understanding that now there's somebody else that works with you in an industry that's something that you weren't gonna be thinking you were doing when you were in the military. But it kind of keeps that like alive. It keeps that like a bond to know that somebody there understands you, or that will understand the way you talk and the reason you are the way you are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, with Rainey being Army, that was one of the things that like him and I never talked about what we did. That was never even a question. It was never even like, oh, what was your job? It was just like I knew he was military. He knew I was, and we could just joke. And if I had to say some really fucked up shit, I'd go to him because I know he's going to be like, oh, shit.
Did you feel that same way about also, we also worked with a guy named Ron. Did you, same thing, right?
Ron's a character, man. Ron was a Marine first for his first 4 years. And then he ended up doing like another 18 to 20 with the Army.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Ron's a whole different breed of a man. He's old school, though. I mean, you could tell the way he carried himself. But he's also in that mentality of like, you're a pussy, you're a bitch if you're not this way. At least that's how I got it, what the feel I got from him. But it's that older generation. You know what I mean? He went in at a time where things were different, and he kept to that. But you could see that he was a good leader. There's things obviously within the company that kind of took away from him a bit. But I think that's also why he ended up leaving, because I think he also knew within himself that the type of man he wants to be in leader was, it's kind of like we talked about earlier about parents, right? That's all he knew. All he knew was the military. He had just gotten out like a year or two before he even worked with us. Mm-hmm. So you imagine 20 plus years in the military, a certain type of structure and leadership trait. You come into a company that's trying to tell you, no, that's not how we do things. It's like, but Ron's one of those guys that I just accepted him for who he was. I didn't care about his background story. I just knew that he served his time. The way he carried himself showed me that the type of leader he was in the military without me ever having to have witnessed it for myself. You know what I mean? But he definitely was like a gung-ho hardcore motherfucker, though. So
yeah,
wouldn't really talk.
Yeah.
Fucking stare at you like you fucked up.
Right.
And it's funny because when he'd smirk, because you knew something was funny, he wouldn't laugh, but he'd smirk. For some reason, it was like the most like jaw-dropping moment, because you're like, did he just show emotion? Like, what the fuck?
That's kind of like how the vibe I got to,
But yeah, so
speaking about working after the military, so how did life treat you after you got out? Ooh. How was it the same? How was it different? How did people act towards you?
Was it different?
Give us the whole shebang.
Yeah, like I said, I think I mentioned earlier, I got out and I was like self-sabotaging myself. I was 100%. not about myself. Like I wasn't me.
Right.
You know, so going through high school, like I said, I played sports. I was that type of person, which I think I'm still like that. You see it. I know I can talk to anybody, and I have a lot of people that know me. I know them because I'm a very social person. And
which is crazy because you told me you used to not be a social person, which I find crazy.
I used to not be like that. In high school, I was social to the groups that I hung around with, which were groups that typically didn't hang around with each other. But I was that person that like could. But overall, I was shy, like because I only talked to certain people in those groups, not the whole group. You know what I mean? I'd befriend certain people, and that's what got me in these groups to do stuff with them. But I would only keep to that person and not their friends, and I wouldn't talk to them because I was shy and bashful, whatever. And so to go from that and go from like a military aspect, you really learn. It's like that no filter thing. You just say it how the fuck it is because that's the way it is. And I really like attached myself to that, and that's who I am now. But it sucks because like going through, I used to joke around so much that like I got voted the class clown in our yearbook thing for our senior year, and I have people that very, 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 very few amount of people, but have said like, you used to be like more fun to be around. Like you just like you don't even joke the way you used to. And I'm just like I don't know how to do that.
This is after you got
This is
out.
after I got back. I lost a lot of relationships with that, friendships, like, you know, those type of relationships, family relationships. Like, I lost a lot of that because I would push people away because I was annoyed all the time. I feel like people didn't understand me, which it's not their fault, but it's hard to talk to people that don't understand because they, like I said earlier, they just say, "Oh, get over it." You know, don't think about it. It doesn't work that way. It's stuck. It's right there. It replays over and over and over and over again. So I really struggled with that. And then on top of that, I didn't want to get out. So to go through all that shit and the medical and all that, I had to get out. I had no plan. And I lived with like survivor's guilt because a friend of mine got killed over there and he knew what he wanted. We were all going to be getting out within 8 months after we got back. Mm-hmm. And we have career recruiters or planners or whatever the hell, basically people that help you transition out. So if you're going to go to school, they'll help you set all that up. So you're enrolled and ready to go by the time you get out. Right. So to go through all that is, you know, I had like a guilt to myself because I'm like, damn, like I didn't have a plan at all. And here I am, I'm out. But then the people that did have a plan aren't alive anymore. Like, what the fuck was that? So like I struggle with that to feel like I didn't deserve to have a life after the Marine Corps. And I struggled. And I feel like I still do struggle with that where I feel like I don't know my place because my place was being in the military, and I saw myself doing that for 20 plus years. So even to now, like I went to school to be a cop. That's been a hit or miss thing for me because I don't know. Like parts of me, like I want to do it, and then I was like, well, no, I don't want to do it. And I guess for me, that's why I feel lost even right now. Like I told you guys when we started this, because we were doing the clips or whatever, because that's all from that time. Because when I first got out, I played the victim card, right? Being deployed was my crutch. That was my justification of why I acted the way I acted and why I felt the way I felt. Why I couldn't hold a fucking job to save my life. Right. Until therapy and everything else, I had to realize, like, you have to be better than that. You know, you have to live a life. And then somebody told me you have to live a life with your friends that didn't get to come back. And that changed everything for me because it's like, damn, like, I'm wasting something that they would have never wasted if I was gone. So, you know, I guess for me, it's coming back was hard because, you know, you have this mentality that you got to be some tough guy shit. Granted, it's not like that anymore. Now it's okay for our generation to talk about what we went through compared to like the Vietnam guys that don't ever talk about that. And there was also that stigma that, oh, if you can talk about it, it's probably because you didn't do it. You know what I mean? So, and it ain't like that no more. Now you can ask for help. Now you can be open about what the hell happened. Right. And, you know, I think me talking about it is what helped me grow. But it went from I got back in 2010, and then I was out a couple of years after for good. And once you get out of that routine is when it hits you. Because you're in the military, you come back and you're going through training, you're still waking up at a certain time. Right. You still have a routine even being in. But the minute you get back home and you realize that nobody's forcing you to get out of bed, nobody's saying, oh, tomorrow we got to be up at 0400, 4 in the morning. I'm not going to hold myself accountable. I'm going to sleep in. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it was a lot of adjusting, and I think that's where people struggle, and that's why you see the suicides and everything else, because people are struggling to adjust, and it's not as easy as people think it is, you know. And I think that's where I struggled for the longest time, and then I hit a path where I was really, really bad to the point that I'm gonna put it out there. Like, I've never told anybody this shit, so you're the first to hear this, but one of my exes got the fucking full-blown worst part of me. And the reason being is she's one of those people that wanted to help. She didn't give up on me. And I wasn't used to that. I was used to pushing people away, and they walked. And, you know, I'm also the type of person that I can't be held. Like, if I'm in a zone and I got to do something, you need to let me do it and don't get in my way. So what I'm going to share with you is the fact that, like, it got to the point that, like, I put my hands on her. Like, you know, I mean, not in some fucking Mike Tyson shit.
Right.
But, like, grabbing somebody to moving the fuck out of the way. And then, or they end up hurting them in that aspect of things. Or legit back and forth, like, getting into it. Fucking, like children punching each other in the fucking thighs or some stupid dumbass shit, you know, like kicking and whatever else, like children, like. And I'm not justifying any of my actions for that, and I don't really give a shit who judges me after that, because I'm being real. I'm being honest.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I don't care how I'm viewed after this. I don't care. There's going to be people that we know, they're probably going to watch it and be like, you're a fucking piece of shit. Yeah, you're right, I was. That's not who I am now. And that hasn't happened since, and her and I still have a good relationship to this day. We're just not together. And It's one of those things that, like, you know, for me, I was going through, and I'm not justifying my actions. Like, I knew what the fuck I was doing, but in that time, I was in such a rage and anger because of what I was going through, and I was trying so hard to self-sabotage and push people away, and this person wasn't falling for it, wasn't fucking being like, she's like, no, I want to be here for you, and I didn't like that. I tried to leave and block the door. I'm gonna do what I have to do to get out of that fucking door. And unfortunately, you were in my way. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, it was never and I'll put it out, it was never fucking, like, I wasn't fucking beating somebody, like, beating her face, and, like, it wasn't like that. But it was definitely grabbing, squeezing, like, get the fuck out of my way, and, like, putting down on the couch so I could run the fuck out, like, shit like that, you know what I mean? And, like, one of those times was when I'm just like, what the fuck did why? That's not me. Like, why am I doing this shit? You know, and luckily, you know, she helped me get, you know, I got help. A lot of it was because of her and for myself at the end of the day. And I don't know, man. I just, I don't know. I made a lot of mistakes, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that it's all because of, it's what I went through, but, you know, my mental state wasn't there in those times. I didn't know how to cope and deal with people actually wanting to be there and jump in front of me, I guess, the moving train, you know. So, yeah, I mean, you want to talk about really coming back to learning yourself, relearning who you are, who you can be, learning mechanisms to cope with life and to continue on. It's like, I'm never going to be cured, but I can live a good life and make up for my wrongs, you know what I'm saying? So